G'day everyone, this is Inka here. Welcome to Investor Journeys, where we chat with everyday Aussies and seasoned investors about their property journeys, the wins, the stuff ups, and everything in between. Whether they've got one property or a whole portfolio, we dive into how they did it, what they've learned, and what their journey's been like so far. No fluff, just real stories from real people. So let's get stuck in. G'day everyone, welcome to the IJ podcast, where we talk to everyday Aussies about their journeys and learn basically whatever they've learned and the wins along the way as well. So today I'm really excited. I've got a fantastic guest for you. I've known this gentleman from New Zealand, but look, that's not his initial background. You'll probably tell by his accent very soon. So yeah, welcome to the podcast, Brian.
Thanks very much, mate. Great to be on board, and just congrats on this, mate. It's great to see this off the ground. So really happy for you, mate. Happy to be on board.
No worries, and if I can get great guests like you, I'm happy. But no, it's really good to have you, and we've gone back a long way. When we first started talking, we were talking more mechanical ducts and exhaust systems
Yeah,
through hospitals.
right. You were plugs and lights. I was there in water, I think.
I was trying to get my cable trays around your ducts and that 200 mil ceiling.
Yeah, that was a few rotations ago, wasn't it?
That was, yeah. That was back in Auckland. When we both worked for Becca, and you've gone on to be what I can see on LinkedIn, mate, a very successful engineer. I pivoted away from all of that, so we've gone down different paths at the end. But
Yes, you have. Yeah.
no, so look, obviously from your accent, people are wondering what's going on with your background, and do you want to tell us a bit about where you grew up and sort of what led you over to this part of the world?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm from Dublin, born and raised. Yeah, my entire childhood was spent in Dublin with a family, me, my brother and sister. I'm the eldest of three. And yeah, I did the usual go to study, go to uni, get the degree without really kind of knowing what what I exactly wanted to do. But that just seemed to be the path of least resistance when you're competent at maths and those kind of subjects, I guess. So I went and did a degree in engineering. Got into a graduate program in Dublin and spent about 3 years going through that. And then I think got the itch, as they say, where I'm from. And yeah, there was a couple of lads who were heading Australia bound, and I said, well, let's go, let's give it a crack, why not, and see what's happening. And yeah, long story short, through Southeast Asia, which is the typical rite of passage, I ended up I kind of bypassed Australia, went straight to New Zealand, and ran out of money very quickly and had to get a job, and didn't go down the hospitality or the fruit picking route, which is what a lot of people do, I suppose. But I ended up getting a job with Becca, so very quickly I'm back with the shirt on and doing my thing. So yeah, and on my job there at Becca, I was commuting quite regularly from Christchurch up to Auckland, working with yourself on some of the hospital jobs in Counties Manukau. And so I spent 3 or 4 years, not 2 3 years, I think it was, from 2008 to 2010, I believe, doing that. And yeah, it's then I got an opportunity through Becca again for a secondment in Victoria. And yeah, since I got there in early to 2010, I've been there. I've been Queensland. I've been back to Melbourne, and finally here. And a wedding, 2 kids later, and a couple of properties. Like, shit, okay, I guess I'm here now. I guess I'm stuck here now. So yeah, that's my high level pathway, I suppose. But yeah, still kind of kept in the engineering side of things, and through the connections you make along the journey, I found a really good mechanical contractor when I was in Regional Big, and they offered me a job, and they're on some really good projects. Spent a bit of time doing a comprehensive cancer center in Melbourne, and that was a really excellent project. And yeah, I'm now working as been through engineering, project management, construction management now. So yeah, we're doing some pretty cool things over in Perth, and yeah, it's good. Bit challenging at the moment with the market, and I suppose state elections, federal elections, Trump, there's quite a few variables in the market which are having an impact in I guess the projects getting off the ground. But yeah, the outlook looks pretty good anyway. So yeah, plenty of work, plenty of work to keep me busy for the next few years, mate.
Absolutely. I think in your line of work, and obviously from my experience, there's always going to be something around the corner. And you're obviously in Perth now, which has obviously been a very strong economy over the last few years. We've seen that in the housing growth and just the population growth and the amount, of the how well the economy's doing really. So no doubt you'll do okay. But I suppose rewinding a little bit in Ireland, you said you're an oldest of three.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever talk about sort of investment, money? What was the situation like over there at that time as well? Because Ireland's gone through, has gone through its fair share of woes, and did that ever get talked about over the table?
Probably not so much over the table. Our situation was probably a bit unique. My father was medically retired when he was reasonably young, so excuse me. We were a single income family because my mum was the primary breadwinner. She had a good job in insurance. She was with that company for 30 odd years, I think it was. So, we had a very comfortable childhood. By no means flash or anything like that. Mum was very very smart and shrewd with the decisions she made along the way. And we didn't want for anything, but we certainly didn't live a life of luxury. But yeah, it was really good. Obviously she's worked through the situation like back in the 80s when there was mass emigration to the UK and whatnot, and interest rates were 17% or whatever they were. So Ireland's done it pretty tough. Um, Came through a boom then after the European Union and all that kind of stuff, and things picked up. The Celtic Tigers, what they called it, and those dodgy property developers and dodgy banks throwing money around and basically messing around with people's money. And it turned the place it messed it around quite a bit to, to be blunt about it. And a lot of people there's a lot of anger, I think, retrospectively about the situation that was left. But I guess before that, going back to our family situation, yeah, mum made a few investments. She we had a property down in just outside Waterford, which was really good. And then another apartment in Spain. So mum's one of 9 girls in her side of the family, so they're always talking and they're always sort of collaborating and that kind of stuff. So one of them got an apartment in Spain, and then my mum was like, "Oh, I want to have one of them too." So she got one of them too, and we hung on to that for a year, or a couple of years. But I don't think that did much. There's a lot of rules about foreign ownership of investments over there, so I don't think it really paid that much dividends. But bit of crack to go over and visit a holiday home in Spain, I suppose, for a bit. But yeah, and so our holidays tended to not be overseas trips. Mum and dad bought like a trailer tent for 1,000 Irish pound at the time. And we spent my childhood from as far back as I can remember till I was 16, 17, jumping in this trailer tent, me, my brother, my sister, and we just go cruise around Ireland for a few weeks of the summer, and just staying in caravan parks and meeting new people and meeting my cousins, all over the shop as well. So there was that was the way we did our holidays, and we are probably a little bit envious some of our friends going off to Spain and France, but in hindsight, no, it was great. It was real character building, core memory stuff for us. So yeah, I look back very fondly on it. I just need to sell it to the missus to pick up a trailer tent and get her on board. But I know the summers over here probably bit hot for camping, so I don't know if that will go down too well, but see what happens.
Yeah, it reminds me of childhood back in New Zealand, really. That's pretty much what most of us Kiwis did when we grew up, just going around, just going camping and just running amok really and not really going to for flashy holidays. So, getting one with nature basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, similar upbringing. So and your mum's one of 9 girls, so that kind of probably paved the path for your 2 girls at the moment as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it definitely seems that way. And then on Courtney's side, Courtney's got 4 sisters as well. So I think
Right.
we're blessed with females. So I'll choose my words carefully. we're blessed with female genes in the family. But no, it's great. So yeah, I always wanted to be I thought I wanted to have a son, and Courtney was adamant she was going to have a son. But when we cut that, cake, the reveal cake, and it was pink, it was like, oh shit, we're gonna have a girl here. But best thing ever, man. Being a girl dad is, yeah, it's brilliant. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel you on the second one as well. Our second one's a girl as well, and it's just nothing like it.
Yeah.
But obviously, just having kids alone is just such an amazing feeling. So, yeah, very very fortunate to be in this position. Now you've obviously gone around the rounds. You've gone through Auckland. You've gone through Melbourne.
Yeah.
Now you're in Perth. When did you move there? And what were you thinking in terms of property? Was that ever come to your mind at all, or was that just a natural flow?
Um, yeah, I guess I've probably been quite mobile over my professional career, so to speak. I was in Melbourne, and I was probably getting a little bit itchy at the time, in the current role that I was, that I was doing. I had kind of looked at maybe picking up something. I was living in St Kilda, playing with a football team, and having a good lifestyle there. It was really lots of fun and great crack. Thought about getting a property there, but then we're getting married, so that kind of took precedence. And very shortly after we got married, we got approached within the company I worked for, D&E, for they were expanding into a project over here, down in Elizabeth Quay. It was the first sort of major development down there. So we reclaimed land there, and it was a Ritz-Carlton hotel and a set of towers over the river there. And we're sending over a team, a project manager, an engineer, and a site manager. And they asked me, what do you reckon? Do you want to go? So I sort of took it back to Courtney. She was flying with Virgin Australia at the time, and it was like, well, what? Perth? Wasn't even not close to being on the radar. So we didn't really, we thought about it, and we said, well, actually, why not? Let's give it a crack. And the company were making it worth our while as well. There were financial incentives to relocate and stay for the duration of the project. So I suppose at that stage I probably had a few quid in the bank. Just stepping back a little bit, being kind of mobile and traveling and spending time Australia, New Zealand. I didn't have much capital until I worked down on the desal plant as a secondment through Becca, and the rent was paid for. There's living away from home allowance. It was only then I started to get a bit of decent coin in the bank. So at that stage I was, well, probably early 30s. So I probably running a little bit late, as later than I would have thought. But yeah, and then similarly coming over to WA, the incentives were there too. So I was able to really accelerate the savings, and fortunately our rent was being paid for the first year. So we said, well, look, let's push and get into the market while we can, without knowing much about the market. So we approached the buyer's agent because we didn't really know the suburbs, didn't really know the areas. We found an agent pretty close to us, and we picked up a place in North Perth at what turns out to be a pretty good price. Back in 2018, I think it was, a small 3x1 townhouse. Noting that it was just me and the missus at the time, so it was the perfect kind of start off property for us. And that was kind of our introduction to property. So we, not knowing how to close a deal or how it all works, but we got a really cool broker on. Big shout out to Michael and his team at the what's the name of it again? Perth Mortgage Specialist. They've been brilliant, and they've been with us every step of our journey too since then. So they helped us, our agent helped us, and so we navigated that first main purchase, and yeah, that's remained our principal place of residence. And now we've got a couple of kids in there, so it's it's great. It's a great suburb, absolutely love it. No complaints, but probably a slight regret, in hindsight. We should have probably gone, maybe at the time, if we had gone like 100k or 150k more, we could have gotten a 4x2 in the same area. I think property prices were close to the bottom of a cycle then, so there was value, and since then, like, North Perth, it's crazy. Like, it's, you're talking 1.8 million for a 4x2 now. It's gone insane, you know. So we're in this great suburb, but we've got a reasonably small house, and it's perfect for now. We absolutely love it. And we're going to hang on to it for as long as we can. We don't really want to relocate because you've got that perfect balance of, amenities around us, great school up the road, and everything's just handy for us. So, work commute, which you can't put a price on that. 15 minutes to work. I mean, I can't put a price on that. I don't really want to be going up and down the freeway every day. So, yeah, here we are. So yeah, we were kind of looking at what do we do next? Do we look at upsizing? And then I saw what you were doing on the social media and went, oh, there you go. Look at this guy. Look at this guy smashing it.
I'm not sure if I smash it, but by then, but yes, we did talk early on. But going back to your PPR, like I recall 2018, 2019 Perth, it went through such a long period where it just was in decline, and then finally it just didn't go anywhere. So I can imagine potentially the hesitancy for, maybe yourself, but others who were going into that property going, is this ever going to turn? Like, are we going to spend 200,000, $300,000 more on another property? Because the confidence at that time was pretty low in the market. Now, this is obviously your own place, so it's a little bit different, but in the same sense, you're still wanting security and everything in your own place. So I can imagine people were a little bit skeptical about the market at that time. But that being said, you're obviously in an amazing area. Like you said, 15 minutes to work,
Yeah,
and the location is pretty premium. So, and
it
you've
is. Yeah.
obviously, yeah, you've obviously been able to leverage from that property as well.
Yeah, that's been the main takeaway. I did have a few sleepless nights. This is our first major, me and the wife, first major investment. And originally when we were shopping around, it was like, oh, we don't really want to spend more than 600K. That's the absolute limit. And then we pushed it to like 700K, and then freaking out, have we gone too far in? So trying to convince my old self to spend an extra 200K. I would have went, nah, it's just not happening. Don't be stupid. First property, let's just take it easy. And then. But anyway, so I try not to be too hard on myself over that. But yeah, and speaking to people that I was working with at the time who were from this area, from 2006 to 2016, there was no growth in the market. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The confidence levels were low. Nobody knew how it was going to go. So we probably did make the right decision at the time. And well, yeah, we'll stand by it and we'll move on. We tend to not look backwards. There's no point. You can't change it. You just learn the lessons and move forward, right?
That's it, mate. So we started having a chat probably around the 2023 sort of mark or so, around then, or maybe late that year. And what was going through your mind? Because you've obviously just purchased this place, or not just purchased, it was 5 years ago. But what was going through yours and your lovely wife, Courtney? Shout out to her. Your guys' minds during that time.
Um, I think we were probably just focusing on paying off this place, and just the traditional old school mindset, I suppose, of just pay it off, yeah, and get yourself out of debt as quickly as possible. So without really knowing too much about what you do. But then obviously I saw yourself on the socials. I've seen things, I've read articles, and I've seen a few YouTube videos and all that, but I'd never really actively looked into it in any great level of detail. But then I saw what you do and what you were doing, and obviously that brought it a lot closer. It was somebody who I worked with, somebody who I respect, call a friend, was doing so well, and that's why I was like, hey man, like what the hell? How did you do this? And that's when we got speaking, and then it just seemed like an absolute no brainer. There was capital there, let's go, let's make a move. So yeah, that was sort of it. There was a fair amount of trust because we knew that I knew that I trusted you. I knew that you knew what you were doing, and the whole engineering mentality was, that's entering my world as well. So understanding the metrics and the variables, and putting it all together and formulating a plan based on that just made total sense to me. So yeah, I didn't have much hesitancy moving forward once we had a conversation, and then a couple of points, I believe, as well, down in Leaderville as well, right?
That's it. I was just about to mention that. I was doing some research in Perth. We were living in India at the time, so I did the whole long haul, and we're doing some research, and I said, mate, we need to catch up for a beer. Regardless of what you're planning to do, let's catch up. And we had a couple of good good drinks there, and we got chatting about property and about life, so that was always good. So, no, it was fantastic to connect, and the respect goes both ways, and we were able to formulate strategies and that trust and connect with each other. So, we managed to find you a property. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was, I think it was the second property that you showed us. The first one just happened really quick. We were just after committing, and it was like, "Hey, we gotta move on this one straight away." And it was a bit of a, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hang on a second. Let's just take a breath." I think it was that first one you showed us was down towards Armadale way, maybe, if from memory, if I was correct.
That's
But
right. Yeah, towards that way.
we probably looked at it and weren't didn't both fancy it in the way that we thought we should. But we've always maintained this kind of disconnect from the investment property. I don't really care too much about it as a property. I don't want to be emotionally attached, but it's got to have a good foundation and all that kind of stuff. And so the first one we looked at, we're a bit not too sure about this one. But then you showed us the second one, which is in Aurelia, just outside of Quinana, and we were about like, yeah, this looks really good. And yeah, I just remember it all happened really quick. I think I was on my way. It was before Christmas in 2023, I believe. And is that right? Yeah, I think it is. And I was on my way up to Malaga. There's a really good Irish butcher up the road. I was getting all my Irish turkeys and hams and all that stuff. And then you put in an offer on our behalf, and then you called us then when I was on my way up to get all my stuff to say it being accepted. And yeah, it was our timing has always been a bit a bit crazy. So we had this thing where over Christmas that we were into the settlement period over Christmas, so it all got a little bit tight at the end. And that's a bit of an ongoing joke I have with Michael and his team, is that every time we buy a property with them, the time and shit. So it's either Christmas or Easter or some other inconvenient time, which makes life difficult because things are shut and whatever else have you. But yeah, we made it happen. We settled in. I think it was the end of January or early February 2024.
Correct. February.
Yeah, it was I picked it up for, what was it, 492, which was really good. Three by one on 750 square meters, something along that kind of that kind of size. And yeah, then I suppose we had put it on the market with Coulson's down there, local agent, and it was rented out within 3 or 4 weeks. So we've had it turns out it's an Irish girl with her kids, and I think there's a dog in there now, so they've been in there. This is year 2 for them. So yeah, it's been great. It's performed, and no issues with the tenants. So yeah, it's been pretty smooth sailing. The usual maintenance as you'd expect. But yeah, gone really good. Gone really good.
Yeah, we had to pick up that one quickly because I can't recall if that one was off market. But yeah, it was, but they definitely had some interest. And they had another guy come in and put an offer down above us. It was actually in the 500s, I remember telling you. And but they couldn't, yeah, they couldn't get their finance, or one of the conditions fell through. So we were able, and I know Michael very well. I've actually bought properties off Michael before and from Coulson. So shout out to them. Great outfit. We've done many deals together, and he trusted me, and I said, mate, I've got this solid couple here who are keen to just move ahead, pre-approved, happy to go. Let's do it, sign it up. So that's why we had to get it done pretty quick. But yeah, it's a very good investment in the sense that we had a look at a lot of surrounding areas, and a lot of the surrounding areas such as Leader and a few of the other areas around there, Wellard, they have performed very, very well, and that the price differential between some of the neighbouring suburbs were quite high, and that's sometimes some things we look at apart from the property trends is understanding the dynamics around the suburbs, and so getting anything under 500 around that time, I was very, very confident in, especially with the amount of demand going on. Vicinity to the city, obviously to the beach. In my opinion, it was going through a bit of gentrification, especially in some of these areas. I personally bought in Medina the year before,
Yeah.
and especially Medina, they had a certain reputation back in the day, but, being that close to the city and knowing what Perth's, gonna be doing, I was very confident in the sort of changes in these areas. So, yeah, great pickup. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you guys were glad that you can probably just drive down the road and see it rather than flying 3.5 hours to see the property.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we still haven't set foot in the place, but we haven't driven past it, and yeah, it's a great little property, and absolutely no regrets with that one whatsoever. And yeah, I think funnily enough, maybe 6 months into the journey, after making the purchase, I saw on Channel 7, I think on WI over here, they were listing out the top performing suburbs, and yeah, right, Aurelia was in the top three in like nationwide or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it was really good. See, it turns out to be really good purchase. So, yeah,
Yeah, and I think also, like you said, the rent in that area, there's a lack of supply. So, with the demand that's going on, I can envisage the cash flow side of things being quite good for you guys as well down the track. So,
yes,
yeah, one of the things I know that we had to look at quite carefully is that whole region around that area. You got to be careful of the bushfires now, and obviously Perth, in a sense, you got to know where those areas are. So we did have to do a bit of due diligence around that area, being near parks and everything. But yeah, it turned out it was outside those zones, so we were able to pull the trigger on it. So yeah, well done on that first purchase, and then you guys obviously settling into that first property, and that's your first investment.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it was, yeah, we were happy to see. I think it's up 25% or something like that in just over the year. So it's it's performing the way we really wanted to. So that was great. And I think it was last Christmas then, and me and the missus were sitting out the back having a champagne or whatever, and we're just discussing what do we do next, what do we want to make a move again, or what are we thinking? And you were kind of tossing up about whether we upsize where we are now, our principal, or make another investment. And that was a pretty honest conversation we had to have, to decide, look, what's the best move overall. And we quickly kind of realized that we don't want to leave the area, but Courtney, I think, was she may have been just back from work from maternity leave, where Orla's, that was only, I suppose she was only probably, was she barely two at that stage, um, and we just couldn't afford to upsize staying where we are. So it was like, right, do we want to move suburbs completely and pick a totally new area, and lose all those lifestyle factors that we have now, as well as Saoirse is in school here. She's got a good circle of mates. She's really enjoying life, and we do want to keep Orla in that same school as well. So we quickly realized that, look, let's just stay where we are. We're good for at least probably 5 years. And they'll both go through the schooling system, and then we'll see what the next move is then in terms of changing the principal place of residence. But it's still a 3x2, so there's plenty of space for us. It's not the quintessential 4x2. But in saying that, like, I grew up as three kids in a semi-detached 3x1 in Dublin. So, and Courtney is being Filipino, that they're used to having more people in smaller footprint. Like, that's normal. Australia is very spoiled with that thing, and this notion of a 4x2 is a real luxury that a lot of people just don't have elsewhere in the world. They really don't. So yeah, we kind of decided that we don't need to move. We're happy where we are. The pros outweigh the cons, and let's dip our toe again. Let's see what we can do and get another investment. For me, I suppose there's an element of catching up. Getting into this journey, it feels like a little bit later than I probably should have. So I don't want to sit in my hands and time passing by and wonder about making a move. Let's just do it. You certainly know what you're doing. We're happy to trust you and back your decisions. So yeah, we didn't have any hesitance in reaching out again and seeing what we could do. So yeah, went back to Michael and his team, see what was our borrowing capacity look like. Fortunately, there's plenty of equity in this place where we are, and there's a bit of equity in the place in Aurelia. So we kind of knew what we were up for, and yeah, then we started speaking and started going through it again. So that was a bit of crack.
yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, and that's why being a buyer's agent is not just about going and finding the right location, you've got to really understand the circumstances in terms of each person's requirements in terms of their family, what they're planning to do. Because I have honest conversations also with a lot of buyers who come to me going, okay, we're looking to upgrade our PPR. Similar to you, a lot of our clients are couples with young children, and they're looking to upsize. And if they're looking to do that in a very short space of time without selling off other properties, or if they don't have any, then it's an honest feedback saying, go ahead and get into your PPR because that's your ultimate goal. But if they've got the mindset that, look, we want to build wealth on the side and we're happy to stay in our current PPR, we're happy to rent or whatever it is, then yeah, financially speaking, if you can build up an asset base of properties that are going to perform in different cycles and in different markets over the long term, you're going to do better. That's what we've done. So yeah, you've got to make that decision, but we don't take these decisions lightly, and we have to have those discussions before even executing. And I'm sure we had those conversations as well. So we've obviously, you've gone back to Michael, you've got the borrowing capacity. We had a few conversations on the phone about, okay, what's your plans over the next few years? Because in terms of strategy, we could have gone to an area and picked up quite quick growth in cycles that have already taken off. But the issue with that, in my opinion, was that they're going to level off in a certain stage. And if you're not looking to invest again in the very near future, you sort of gone into two markets which have accelerated quickly, but then may have a longer period of stabilization. And we wanted to, potentially look at what we call anti-cyclical market cycles and investing in those to make sure that you've got a portfolio that will generally grow at a steady pace over time as opposed to having these long periods. So that's a conversation we had, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're right. It was definitely reflective of what our current situation was and what our needs were, and I think we concluded that yeah, we're not going to go anywhere for 5 years. So in terms of a short or medium term plan, we would like to build up some capital in that time frame, and then we'll reassess along the journey. So that's, I suppose, what drove our search for the next investment. And yeah, I guess that's what landed us back in Melbourne, right?
I was going to say it's a very familiar place we landed back in,
Yeah.
and so,
Mhm.
but yeah, we landed in Melbourne, and the purpose was really that essentially we had, we've done our research and we've identified certain areas which have had, somewhat lackluster performance, and mixed with affordability and demand metrics, we wanted to make sure we execute on your budget. And you had a certain budget in mind in terms of borrowing capacity, because you had to go quite a lot of back and fro with Michael in terms of Courtney's situation. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
and I remember we waited for a couple of months or so, a month, and waited for these payslips to come about with a change of work situation, and that gave you that higher borrowing capacity. But we talked about how high do we go to that borrowing capacity, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, we did, and you're right. It was a bit of a journey, particularly with Courtney, because she's a nurse. She works in skin cancer, and her previous job was a casual position, which was ideal because it provided that perfect flexibility for school runs and all holidays and all that kind of stuff. But she wanted to move to the next step, and she got offered a position in a permanent place. So, and that only started at the start of this year. So we needed to build up a little bit of, a few runs of pay slips to get that ticked off, because the banks really don't look favorably upon um, temporary positions. So that was a thing that we had to navigate. And then she had another side job as well, which was casual, and she hadn't done shifts in a while, and they wouldn't recognize the pay slips and all that kind of stuff. So we were kind of reliant, looking solely at my income at the time, and then I had a promotion recently as well, so that had just kicked in, and that sort of settled where we were in terms of borrowing potential, borrowing capacity. So once we had that kind of locked away, we knew what we're looking at, so we're able to move pretty quickly. Then once we knew everything was locked in, pre-approval was there. So yeah, we knew what the budget was, and time to make a decision, I guess.
Yeah, and off we went. And was this the first property I proposed to you? I can't quite recall.
No, I think the first one was up in Townsville, because I know you're doing a bit of work up there. And that was one that we required like a 24-hour decision.
Mm.
and I can't remember why we declined that one. There was a reason. But anyway, we moved on pretty quick. I think we were still sorting out the financials. We were still waiting
That's
on
right.
potentially my pay slips. So that wasn't really feasible at the time. So we settled back for I think 4 weeks until that all got stabilized, and we were ready to make a real move. So yeah, you came to us then with a property in Melbourne, and it all happened really quick.
Yeah, that initial property in Townsville, that was before we had the sort of those sort of solid conversations about the strategy. So yes, we proposed a property in Melbourne, suburb in Melton West, and yeah. And do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it was really nice. You showed it to us, and straight away, me and Courts were like, "Whoa, geez, this looks really good," really good street frontage. Not that that's a huge factor for us necessarily, but it was on 770 squares, I think. A really big property, extension at the back, and a granny flat too. So it was a 3 by 1, but effectively it was a 4 by 2.
Mm.
Really good land, well presented, and the interiors looked really solid, looked in great nick, and yeah, it was a no brainer really. We were like straight away, it was very quick. Yeah, let's go for this one. We don't need to agonize over the decision too much here. Like it was a pretty much of a no brainer for us. So.
Yeah, yeah. Had existing tenants in it, but yeah, the property itself was immaculate. Like in terms of the way it was presented, especially having a tenant in it as well. I thought it was a really solid, brick home, nice, like you said, nice frontage, nice presentation. But the way the granny flat was built as well, it looked really solid and modern. And typically those granny flats, a 2 by 1 would. Oh, sorry, this is a 1 bedroom, I think, from memory. Yeah, it was a 1 bedroom. So typically speaking, they'll set you back at least 50 to 100 grand. So that alone, has that X factor for this property. And yeah, it was already tenanted. So yeah, fantastic purchase.
Yeah, and there's right on the motorway as well, so about 30 k's west of Melbourne, I believe. So yeah, and the numbers are really solid too. So yeah, it's funny because obviously we used to live in Melbourne, and yeah, I guess we didn't buy when we were there, and here we are buying a place in Melbourne. So
Yeah, it's definitely a long-term play, this one. I mentioned to you, that this area is starting to change, but Melbourne as a whole obviously has certain areas which are looking good. And this is one of them. But that's always shifting. So, I think if you guys have done fantastic. Yeah, from memory, we bought that for about 560 on.
yeah, 560 odd, yeah, spot on.
Yeah, so that we'll certainly monitor that value over time, because that was quite recent. But I suspect that over the long run, this will do really well. So yeah, well done, guys. And now you're sort of sitting on two investment properties, in two very different states, that have gone through very different market cycles in the past. So how's your sort of mindset now? How's the finance situation? Because I know we were talking about putting that one on interest only, but it ended up being principal and interest. So how's that finance situation, and how are you guys feeling?
Yeah, that's probably been something that we have to adjust to and get used to it. I don't think we've actually paid anything on it yet. So I think it might even be today or tomorrow is the first payment on that particular mortgage. But after we consolidated all the mortgages, we got yeah, that particular property was I think we got an interest only on that one, but the secondary loan attached to it was principal and interest, and I think everything else is principal and interest. So yeah, look, it is it's probably a little bit tight on the finances. But yeah, look, it's certainly within our means. It's just a realization that the pay comes in and the pay goes out. So yeah, we're comfortable enough, but we just want that to stabilize for a few months and see how it all goes. Get used to that. The yield's reasonably low in Melbourne, to be fair. So and there's a tenant in there, I think, until September. So we might revisit that. I've already spoken to the agent over there about what that looks like at the end of that 12-month period, and whether we keep the tenants in. My preference is always to leave the existing tenants in if there's no issues. But yeah, we'll try and see what the market is doing, and what opportunity there is to potentially increase that rent slightly. But yeah, look, we'll get used to this for probably 6 months to a year, see where we're at, and then reassess.
Hopefully refinance. I mean, look, rate the way rates are going, and obviously that's welcome news. The
Yeah.
way it's reducing, so that's always going to help. But once you start getting equity in properties, and the loan to value ratio comes down, you can certainly negotiate with a number of banks. So yeah, hopefully we can sort of restructure that in the future. But for now, you're well set on your way, in my opinion. And yeah, now it's just buckling down, isn't it?
It feels that way.
Yeah.
It is. It is. Yeah, we just keep the heads down, do the right thing, and hopefully, I was looking at the numbers yesterday. So when you factor in sort of all the stamp duties and all the costs and all that, and you weigh up all the debt on the properties versus the value, we're probably at the point now where all the costs have been offset, and we're now entering into profit territory, or real value. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll continue growth because we've done really well in Kwinana, or really, I should say, over the last year. So if that continues, and all the market's predicting that to continue over the next 2 years, certainly over here anyway, if you believe what they say in the news. But and so I listen to the Per Property podcast as well, and that I find that really good. Trent does a really good job there, and the fundamentals there's not enough houses, so there's every reason to expect that the property prices will maintain their trajectory. They may slow or they may quicken in certain areas, but I think we're well set with what we have, certainly down there. And in Melbourne, yeah, I mean, getting a 4x2 in the Melbourne suburbs for sub 600 is just, to me, sounds like a really good deal. So we've every confidence that will increase in capital over the coming years, and yeah, we'll figure out what the next plan is then. But yeah, we're just trying to adjust to the life of being landlords. So yeah, it's a bit different, but you got to do what you got to do, right?
Absolutely, mate. Nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, there's tenants who want houses, and you're supplying it. So,
Yeah.
you're doing a favor.
We got to think of the girls as well, and what their future
Yeah.
looks like. So and by all reports, it's just going to get harder and harder for the next generations to get into the market. And obviously, the part of that solution is high rise stuff. It's absolutely inevitable. They can't build houses quick enough over here. So whatever the solution looks like, it's going to involve high rise living. And there's a hell of a lot more value in land, as an investor, than in apartments. So I think we are comfortable that we're doing the right thing. Absolutely, I sleep easy at night. Put it that way, right? And then the other side of it as well for us is that, going back to what I said earlier, like, I had no notion of ever being in WA or moving to WA, and yet here I am 7 years later. Who knows what the next 5-10 years is going to look like? I could end up anywhere. I'm really happy with every aspect of life here. But there's always a variable that gets thrown in, and we don't know where we'll end up being in 5 years' time. We could be back home in Ireland for all we know. And should that be the case, we sell everything, and we're walking away with a nice pot of cash, which would set us up, down the future. So if that were to happen, even then, our decisions will be endorsed. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. And should we stay here? Well, at some stage we'll look at getting a bigger place for the girls. I'm sure they'll want a bit more space, and we may want a pool at some stage in the future. But then we got to trade that off for maybe a longer commute to work. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the fact that you've got options to sort your life scenarios out. It's fine. Same with us. We're jumping around all over the place.
Yeah, you're always living in different parts of the world, right?
We might be in Perth having a pint pretty soon. Who knows? So
Yeah,
yeah. We'll
like
wait and
$15 a pint, go, mate. Jesus.
That's all right. It'll be my shout. But no, it's it's always good to see what people do. And I think with this sort of scenario, you've got options to manifest your sort of situation. Opens up a lot of doors. So yeah. So what I would say, mate, is from Auckland designing ducts and electrical, for us to join forces like this, and I really have every confidence you guys are going to do amazing. You guys have been amazing clients of mine as well. Super easy going, and I really look forward to to sort of seeing your success in the future, mate. And obviously always here to provide the support. So well done on your journey so far, and bringing up your family over there. It's been really good to see.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ike. That's kind words. And likewise, we couldn't have done this without the trust that we have. And you've been great from start to finish. Very efficient, very, very warm and engaging. And we've got no doubt whatsoever that you're working in your client's best interest. So if anybody is listening to this and thinking of reaching out, please do. Highest of recommendations. Like you won't regret it. It's as simple as that. And the only other piece of advice I give to those is get a good mortgage broker. It's really key, and having a good agent and a good finance person behind you, it's absolutely critical. But yeah, again, congratulations to you and your journey, mate, because it's been really really inspirational to see what you've done for you and your beautiful family, and you're setting them up, no doubtably, for a great future. And yeah, the best of wishes on the podcast journey as well. It's pretty cool. I've never been on one before, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely not challenging for sure. And I really, really appreciate the sentiment, mate. So thanks again for joining on, Brian,
Yeah.
and give my regards to Courtney, and we'll speak soon.
Likewise, Ike. All the best, mate, and I say hi to your family too. Take care.
Thank you, mate. Thanks everyone for joining on, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the chat, feel free to drop us a rating on Spotify or wherever you listen. It helps us reach more listeners to help them with their journey. Catch you in the next episode.